Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining Rachel and I. My name is Soila. I'm the founder and editor of the divorcemagazine.co.uk. And I have known Rachel for quite a while now. And, she was my mentor. You were my mentor for a couple of years, Rachel.
Yes.
And it's really a pleasure to have you on here. But for those who don't know Rachel, I'm not sure who that would be, but I'll let her tell us who she is.
Well, I'm an entrepreneur and a business coach, a business mentor, and I'm the co-creator of Source TV. That's me in a professional nutshell, I guess.
Okay, maybe at the end you can tell us what Source TV is, actually. That would be great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay. I
Okay.
was also, people may have seen me on Dragon's Den as well. I guess that's my claim to fame. I was one of the first dragons on the first two series of BBC TV's Dragon's Den.
And Red Letter Days also. That was a pretty good, business that you ran there.
Yeah, Red Letter Days was my first business, which I started at 24 from nothing and built into a multi-million turnover market leading brand, which led to the whole Dragon's Den fame. So that was a really beautiful first business for me to have run.
And the way that I met you was through, yes, I had seen you on Dragon's Den, and then I saw a book that you had written, Business Nightmares.
Yes.
Which I picked up and I read through it. And right at the end, there was this little paragraph saying, if you want to get in touch with me, please do so. And I thought, well, I'm going to get in touch with her. And you did respond. And then here we are many years later.
Yeah, yeah.
So the reason why I asked you for an interview was really because there's something that we share in common is that we are both twice divorced. And I think maybe the big difference is that you're more open to love than I am at the moment, if I can expose myself. And so I just wanted you to just kind of like, because I'm not the only one, and I know that we are quite a number, male and female, who have been through divorce, and they reach a point where, do we trust love again? How do we trust love again? How do we allow it to come into our lives, or even the right kind of love? And I couldn't think of anyone better to ask than yourself.
Yeah. So just to say, Soila, I'm not quite divorced twice because I've separated from my husband.
Yeah, okay.
So we're currently divorcing and sort of extricating ourselves from probably a 13-year relationship.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so just going through that.
You're going through the divorce process now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And how's that going, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's relatively painless.
Okay.
And we're just doing the legal bit. We haven't done the financial and children bit of it yet.
Okay. All right. Okay.
There's no pressing urgency to do that,
Yeah, I think how long have you been separated now?
Well, that's one of the mute points because we've kind of separated and got back together and separated. And it's one of those kind of, quite often in a relationship, you get to a point where you just can't live together and then you get back together. Yes. And so that's been going on probably since 2006, actually.
Oh, right. Quite a while then.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you're in the process of it all, which, I mean, my second one was quite straightforward. We went through the courts. There wasn't much to fight for in terms of we had already agreed. We'd been separated for a while. So we had already agreed on what's happening where and what. So it was just, making it a formal separation, meaning a divorce. So I know that at some point, sometimes divorces don't have to be horrible. There are many that are, but they don't have to be, all about fight and war and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Rachel, how did you come to be where you are in terms of your relationship? I know you've just had one. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
You mean D Sunshine?
Yes. Because I got to know about your relationship with him through Facebook.
Yeah. I think my view of relationships and love are very different now. I'm on a kind of spiritual path of expanding my consciousness because I recognize that on my sort of life trajectory, people are sent to me as healing and teaching and opportunities for expansion. And so I'm much more in a place of saying yes to possibilities, and particularly unusual possibilities, because I think if I were to write on paper the kind of man and all of the requirements that I wanted, and to be very specific about it, and I think that closes I think that closes off a lot of possibilities that the universe sends you.
Okay.
And so D Sunshine arrived, and he's totally not my type if I were to write it down on a piece of paper. But because there were so many synchronicities around him and how we met, and just things that we, as we started to know one another, cosmic signs, I really thought to myself, I just need to go with this and explore it and go with this flow and see where it's taking me, because there's a higher purpose at work here. Mm-hmm. And so I think our relationship was very short, very intense, and it was deeply healing, and it was very powerful. I don't even know if it's still over. Mm-hmm. One of the real signs was that I was doing a lot of work around healing my relationship with my mother.
Okay.
And his birthday is my mother's birthday. And so I immediately thought, this is someone who's been sent by my mother as a sort of cosmic gift. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously a reason. And sometimes those lessons can be difficult and painful. Mm-hmm. And I've really learned through my journey about the importance of going into the darkness and looking at what needs to be dealt with, you know. So I think it was a very cosmic, very powerful relationship, which lasted only 2 or 3 months, you know.
It was very intense for those of us looking from the outside in, if you want. It was very exciting, I have to say, when I first saw the picture, you know, in a relationship, and I was like, oh my God, you know, Rachel, I have to call her, I have to speak with her, interview her about all this. And there's one thing that my sister said one time years ago, my sister Catherine, and she said, if you want to know, if one way of finding out if you're compatible with the person that you're dating or that you're seeing is go on holiday with them and see what happens there. Not a weekend away, because you can be on your best behavior on a weekend away, but go away, you know, just the two of you, and see how that pans out. And you have just been to Peru, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was much more than a holiday. It was a shamanic pilgrimage, which we knew. I mean, I knew it would be very challenging and very transformational. So it was much more than a holiday. It was with a group of 14, 15 of us, and we went on this pilgrimage, which involved camping out in the Andes with no toilets, and going on and doing shamanic medicine work, which is very powerful, transformational work. So I kind of knew it wouldn't be a picnic. And it did bring up huge amounts of stuff that we needed to deal with, not just in our relationship, but each individually. Okay. So it was a very, I mean, I kind of knew that it was not going to be easy. And there was a lot of resistance. I mean, he almost didn't come, like literally 24 hours before. He said, I'm not coming. I'm just not coming. And I said, well, it's because you're frightened. It's like ego resistance, which comes up when you're about to do big transformational work. And eventually he decided to come along, and literally the healings and the transformations started like literally from arriving, you know. Yeah. So it was a very powerful experience, which has completely transformed everything since we got back. I mean, within a few days, he'd left, he'd cleared out and gone. But I kind of got that because I'd done so much shifting energy work, transformational work, that maybe our point of attraction had changed because I'd cleared and healed a lot of the stuff that I think he was sent into my life for, you know. Okay.
All right. There's a phrase that you used just before we started the interview, which I thought was quite brilliant, and that was stepping stone relationships.
Yes. Well, I think that's the thing, that life is a journey of transformation. So the problem with being married to someone is if you're not growing and traveling together and you're doing transformational work together, inevitably you're going to shift your point of vibration, because you obviously attract someone to your resonance at the time you meet. But then if one person, I mean, I've done a huge amount of transformational work over the past 10 years, I mean, a massive amount. And my husband was totally in the material realm, not into metaphysics, and totally was not on that path. And so we just grew further and further apart. And so, it was inevitable that we separated. But I think in that space that's left, in that vacuum, sometimes you can attract in someone who may not be your next lifelong partner or next long-term partner, but can just be helping you to clear and heal the pieces that are left to deal with, so that you can almost create a foundation and to do the inner work to allow you to create a foundation for a new relationship, a new really solid relationship, which can last for a long time, can build on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have two questions from that. The first one would be, did you know from the get-go that this was part of a healing process? You see what I mean? Sometimes you can meet somebody,
yes.
and
I did, yes.
Okay.
Because I did, and I was very specifically told, because I had been told by a higher power that I had been sent Krishna as part of my healing, and he is a tantric healer, and that's how we met, as I was mentoring him in return for experiencing his tantric healing, which was very transformational. And then we went on another healing experience together, and I did get this download that, because I had kind of thought, he's not my type at all, and he's not, why on earth would I want to go out with someone like that? He just doesn't tick any of my boxes. And I was very specifically told, we have sent you Krishna. Why aren't you saying yes? And, he's been sent, and he's a gift, and all you need to do is say yes. But we knew, I mean, he's a polyamorous hippie, and he was actually told separately that he had to commit to me if he wanted a relationship. Okay. So we committed to one another until the spring equinox next year. So we always knew, I mean, the commitment was only ever for 6 months.
Okay.
And so it was always touch and go whether we would actually make it through to the spring equinox.
Okay.
So we kind of knew that we'd come together for a season and a reason, as opposed to a lifetime, I think. Okay.
Do you know what that reason is now?
Well, I do think it was, for both of us, we had a real mirror, in that we both had difficult relationships with our mother, which we were wanting to heal and transform. And so when I discovered he was born on my mother's birthday, I thought, that is such a sign. And because we're both on the path of evolution, we're both evolutionaries, and very polarized. I mean, I'm very much from a capitalist entrepreneurial background, and he's completely from a socialist nomadic hippie. So it's almost like we're symbolic of the old paradigm and the new paradigm, and whether it could come together and kind of find a midpoint. And bizarrely, I was very much working in my masculine energy, and he was very much in his feminine energy, bizarrely. So there were all sorts of polarities that we were almost like playing with, like whether we could find this balance, this midpoint. And and to some extent we did, but then it just got so, I think the work was so powerful and so overwhelming, and I think it just got so uncomfortable. And sometimes, it's that thing is you just think, I just want a quiet life, and I just need to get out of here. And I think he got to that point of just, it was too much work.
Okay.
Too much darkness to face, not just in him, but both of us.
The part that I'm going to say, the part that I liked was your story when you were traveling back from Peru, and you were not going to sit together.
Well, he was very adamant that he didn't want to travel back with me, so he literally abandoned me at the airport. And luckily, there was another one of our group who was coming back on the same flights, this other older gentleman kind of accompanied me and kept me company, and which was sweet. So I didn't have to make the journey on my own. And we got, because there's 3 flights to get back from Cusco, so Cusco to Lima, and then we went the long haul bit, which was Lima to Madrid, was a 12-hour flight. And we went to the online check-in, and the only seats available were in the mid 4 seats of the jumbo jet, and so we both opted for seats like rows apart. We went to check in totally separately, checked in our bags totally separately, and he, without me knowing, asked if he could be moved to an aisle seat, and I, without him knowing, asked if I could be moved to a window seat. And so we were both moved and ended up sitting next to one another.
How was that flight?
400 seat plane, you know. And so it was, and so when that happened, he immediately asked the hostess, "Can I move?" And they said, "Well, no, sir, the flight's full. There's no place for you to move." So literally, we had a 12-hour flight without talking to one another.
Wow, at all?
Very little,
okay.
Yeah. So it's, but I just thought it was funny, because I just think actually source, the cosmic, cosmic source, it is a bit of a cosmic joke. Yeah. And I think that it's a very playful universe that does actually just chuckle.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I did burst out laughing at that point when I read that, and I just shook my head and I said, "Oh my gosh, that's just amazing." So now you've been through this. The other question that I wanted to ask you was, what have you learned about yourself from your divorce and separation from your husband's, and what have you learned about yourself from this relationship that you've just come out of with D Sunshine?
Yeah, well, I think if I tend to look at relationships in the context of my life journey, and I married Chris literally a month before Red Letter Days crashed.
Okay.
And
Chris is your second husband.
This is my second husband. Yeah. And what actually happened is that led me on a journey into a whole new world of wow. Becoming a published author, becoming a speaker, becoming a mentor, and going on my own transformational journey. And my husband is very material realm. He's very Taurian, very material realm anchored. He's not into woo-woo stuff at all. And I really got that the universe sent him to me as a real stable material realm anchor that would look after me and keep me going and look after me and create a solid base from which I could do my own transformational journey. Mm-hmm. And I really got that by last December, which was when we finally decided to separate, and I'd done a lot of energy work in the run-up to that, a huge amount, that when he finally left, and literally within a month of that, I unexpectedly acquired a huge lump sum of money from a pension fund, which I didn't even know existed. Wow. When I would turn 50. And it's almost like the universe had sent him for that 10-year period.
So interesting,
to just help me through, to almost to be the rock while I could do my personal development work and get to the point where I could release him. I was then sent a lump sum of money that would make me financially free of that, because I was obviously recovering from losing my business, and I went through a whole bankruptcy, and it was a whole very healing, cathartic process. And so it was almost like he'd fulfilled his role of that journey, and I was kind of, I'd rehabilitated myself into a new era. And then the relationship with, I did have another relationship, which was a long distance relationship with someone who I didn't see that often. So it didn't really it didn't really count, you know. And so I actually decided that wasn't enough for me anymore, that I really wanted. And I did some energy work around calling in a loving, committed relationship with a man who loves and adores me. And I also went to Stonehenge, bizarrely, and I did some energy work on a full moon inside Stonehenge when Mars and Venus were aligned. And I did this whole kind of meditation and intention setting. And literally within 2 weeks of that, D Sunshine had like kind of proposed to me this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so our relation, although I'd already met him at the time of Stonehenge.
Yeah.
But literally within 2 weeks, he'd kind of proposed that we should commit. So it was very fast, magical manifestation.
Yeah.
Which I had very definitely called in from the universe, you know.
Yeah, and you've come away from that knowing what about yourself?
Well, because we did the Peru trip, which was very deep and very transformational, and I also realized that it was important for him to accompany me to Peru, because we did a lot of those journeys together on medicine.
Okay.
I was shown that I'm actually a healer, which I didn't realize before, that I'm actually able to transmute darkness into light. And I was actually given a cosmic training of how to do that. And I think I just cleared and released a lot of old stuff, a lot of old baggage, mental, emotional healing that needed to be cleared, that kind of cleared the path to also release D. It's almost like he had served his purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And literally within a few days of us getting back, he had decided to move and just vacated, and all sorts of magic has started flowing. So I think definitely something has shifted in my energetic point of attraction. And that's the thing, we're constantly trying to change stuff outside of us, but actually the only person that you can really change is yourself. And when you change your own energetic point of attraction through doing energy work, that's when the results, your life has to change as a result of doing the work, and that's what I found.
Rachel, what advice would you give somebody who's hanging on to a relationship which is, you probably would say dead, but because they have, you see what what I'm about to say. So somebody who they've gone through a divorce, but 6 years later they're still so embittered by the fact that their husband did this or their wife did that, or somebody who is in a terrible relationship where I know some people where I can't even understand how they still share a bed, let alone live in the same house. I guess what I want to ask is, how does one actually let go of that kind and just think, oh, this is done,
Well, one of the things I was really clearly shown when I did my medicine journeys in Peru is that it's all a co-creative collaboration. So far as you are looking outside, blaming it on your husband or your new partner and making them wrong, and you're the victim and they're the aggressor, or when you really start taking responsibility that you are the manifester for everything in your life, and you could not have manifested that person in unless they were a match to something in you that needs to be looked at. So I think it's really important to take responsibility of, like, why is this man here? And what is it in my energy field? What is it in my point of attraction? Why have I attracted them in? What do I need to learn? What is this showing me that I need to shift and heal and transmute and transform? Because when you start taking responsibility for that, and you really start doing the inner work, and there's lots of processes. I mean, I was talking to someone else today about this, and there's a great process, Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian forgiveness process. Okay. Which is really asking that person for forgiveness for manifesting them into your life, because you have to take responsibility. So I think when you move out of that place of poor me, victim, blaming mode, and really say, what is this showing me? What do I need to heal and learn and shift here? Because when you actually get to that piece inside you, and that you can really shine a light on that and dissolve that and release that and free that and heal that and transform that, your outside life changes. And that's definitely what happened with my second husband, Chris, because for a long time we'd been just in a really angry situation, arguing. And I was actually invited to go and do some emotional trauma healing with Juliet Yelverton in Glastonbury. And I thought, well, I don't have any emotional trauma. I don't really think I need that, but I kind of knew better than to resist it. So I said, okay, I'll come and I'll go through it and I'll experience it and see what it's about. And I spent 2 days with her, 2 sessions. I'd stayed down there overnight. And I really got from working with her how much trauma I had in my childhood around my relationship with my brothers. And I had a very adrenaline-fueled, drama-filled childhood. And as a result of that, I was constantly creating drama and adrenaline-filled relationships in my life.
Yeah.
And when we did the work to release that, she basically said, what you really need to do is create a safe space for you and your children, and that's what you need to do next. And we did a lot of energy work to release the trauma. And I said, well, when I get home, what should I do? She said, the work is done, Rachel, the work is done. And I'm like, oh. So I literally got home and my husband said, we need to sit down and talk. And I'm like, oh, okay. He said, yeah, I've written you a letter, but I actually didn't want to post it. I thought we should sit down and talk. I've decided to move out. And literally, I didn't have to do anything. I literally didn't have to do anything because I'd done the energy shifting work with her, which shifted my point of attraction, which released his need to be with me, to show me this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And literally within a week, he'd gone. And I didn't have to do a thing. I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to push. I didn't have to negotiate. It literally was like a dose of salts. And the same thing happened with the D scenario. So I really know how powerful doing internal energy shifting processes is to create different results in your life, you know.
One of the things that I can hear my echo, I hope it's not echoing, but one of the things I wonder is when you speak about it, for a lot of people, it is quite traumatic. You know, you come home, it's over, this relationship is over. What did you do, or did you not have emotions of anger, resentment, I don't know, you know, the ones that come with a breakup of a relationship, rejection and so forth?
I'd been living with a lot of particular anger through the whole of the kind of separation, toing and fromming and living together but not being together. And so I'd been going through a lot of anger issues, and I really got from doing this work that anger was coming from this emotional trauma of my childhood and this adrenaline-fueled way of life and living. And so when I cleared that vibration from my field, so to speak, and I really was taught and learned how to go into a place of peace and to get into a vibration of harmony, peace and harmony. I mean, I do still go into anger, but it's very noticeable now and I can really pull back from it. I'm not saying I don't have a temper, but I'm so much better and so much calmer and more peaceful than I was. And so if you change your vibration into a place of peace and joy and safety and love and harmony, anything that is angry can't exist in that environment. It has to go.
What about sadness and grieving for the relation, tears, you know?
Well, tears are a good way of healing and purging, but I think you have to really look at what is lying beneath the grief and the sadness, and sometimes it's anger that's unexpressed, sometimes it's fear, you know. So I think working through, doing your own inner work to clear whatever that is so that you can get back to a place of equilibrium, then the stuff that's creating the grief and the fear and the sadness evaporates. It literally is like magic.
So is it safe for me to say you don't see any of your, you know, like your divorce and separation and Day Sunshine as a loss? Those relationships?
I have to say I do miss Day Sunshine, and I do think that our journey is not over. I don't think we've completed. I think there's more work to do. Okay. Whether he's up for that or not, I'm not sure, but I don't think we've fully completed that. I think there's probably more work to do, but we'll see. But I just I kind of tend to live now in this belief in the power and the magic of the universe, and I kind of see my future as a blank canvas, and I kind of think, I wonder what magic's going to happen next.
Oh, that's exciting.
No, and it's a really wonderful way to live life, where you're just kind of like saying yes and showing up. And I think really recognizing resistance is really important, because there's a lot of resistance to change in ourselves, you know, and there's a lot of kind of reasons we give ourselves why not, reasons why we shouldn't step into expansion. And you know, opportunity arrives, we kind of make, it's very easy to make reasons why not to go for it. But I've kind of got into this place of kind of saying yes to life. It's quite funny, when I was with Dee, when I first went up to Scotland to mentor him and to experience his tantric work, we went to this pub and there was this secondhand bookshelf, and he said, oh, I'm going to go over there and see if there's any spiritual books. And the book that he found, the only book that he found, was Yes Man. I mean, it's like a film by Jim Carrey. It was like a book of the Yes Man, the original book. And he got this book, bought this book for 50p, and he made a decision in that moment that he would say yes to whatever came up. So then the next day I said, well, I'm doing this retreat, you know, in Glastonbury or wherever it was, in Bristol, and do you want to come? And he's like, yes. And then the shamanic woman said, I think you should really commit to Rachel and go into a monogamous relationship for at least 6 months. And he's going, oh, okay, yes. So it's like he became the yes man. But I think it got to a point where he was like in the yes man story. If you watch the film, he just gets into such a pickle with his life, because he has to say yes to everything. That it all goes badly wrong, and then and from that place he sort of so I think he just got to the point of just like, no, enough. I can't take any more. Like, get this out of here. I just want to go back to safety. And sometimes when you do big transformational work, you do have to just take a break and just allow it to integrate before you do more, because it can just be, otherwise it can be like being shot out of a cannon, you know, energetically.
I wanted to ask you what advice you would give other, I will say moms because you're a mom, not a dad. What advice you would give moms who are going through relationship breakdown or transformations with regards to still being able to parent their children as best as they can?
Yeah, I think the key thing with kids is just to reassure them that they're safe and they're loved. Because having done the emotional trauma work, a lot of emotional trauma is rooted in childhood. And
that's what I was about to say earlier, yeah.
Yeah, it's rooted in stuff like fear of abandonment, fear of what's going to happen to me, and that kind of deep survival worries of, will I be safe? Will I be fed? Will I be abandoned? Who's going to look after me? Who's going to love me? All those kind of things. And so recognizing trauma and how you're creating trauma in the lives of your children, I think, is quite interesting, having done the work.
Really important.
And I did get that I had created quite a lot of trauma, because we had some horrific rows with my husband when I was here, when he was still here. The children got really frightened, you know, and it was quite traumatic for them. So I really learned from that from doing that work about trauma healing and the dangers of trauma. So I now make a big point of really saying you're loved, you're safe, no matter what. And even stuff like angels are protecting you and God's protecting you, and nothing can happen to you, and you'll always be loved, you'll always be safe, those kind of reassuring things. But I learned that from doing the work with Juliet.
Yeah, because they need to hear that, don't they? They need to hear that.
Well, feel it as well.
Yeah.
To vibrationally feel it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to take what I consider, it was going to be my final question, but then you kind of brought it up at some point, but it was more to do with, it's kind of like a sharp right turn, but it's what book are you reading at the moment?
Oh, well, I'm not actually reading a book at the moment because I'm in the midst of planning and writing my next book, which is a kind of work in progress because
Okay.
I've done so much energy work. It was
Yeah.
originally going to be called Prosperity.
Okay.
And it's kind of evolved into like a journal, which I want to create a kind of transformational journal book, which takes people on a journey to magical manifestation and transformation. So it's quite interesting that I've been sent on my own journey since having that kind of download. So that's kind of where I'm focused, because I think with all of this work, sometimes you're on input and sometimes you're on output. And I've done so much input recently, particularly with doing the shamanic work in Peru, that it's kind of like I'm ready to be on output and to get creative. And I haven't actually created a program since I think last April, May time.
Okay.
So it's almost like I've been on input and doing my own learning journey and experiential work. And now I'm ready to be on output again and to put those teachings and learnings into my next piece of creative work, which I will launch. There's an online program and the book, which the first comes out on the 1st of January, and the book will be published. I'm hoping actually in February. Now it's a journal.
Yeah. It's interesting when you talk about input and output, it always comes to mind. I remember you telling me when you were mentoring me that there are moments you don't always have to be on output, always just creating and making, and sometimes you go literally into input, what else is going on. And when I get to those moments where I'm like, oh, I don't really know what to do right now, it's like, okay, just leave it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Society is kind of geared to be 90% action and doing, and only 10% of input. And I would really advocate 50-50. So 50% input, and input is anything from reading, going to seminars, going on experiences, learning, being coached, or meditation, thinking, all of those kind of processes. And then what I tend to find is that when you spend that kind of time replenishing your tank, when you get inspired to be on output, and I would really say to people, wait, because it's like building a head of steam. Because when you suddenly get to that point of, aha, wow, yeah, I can just like, and you start downloading stuff, you can move to really beautiful, inspired action and get huge amounts done very quickly, very elegantly, and very effortlessly. And it doesn't feel like hard work at all. So I'm a real advocate of 50% input, 50% output, and to go with your energy, because sometimes there may be months when you're just not feeling like going to action. And I think that's the luxury of being in business and having my own, not having to kind of go to a 9-to-5 job, and which is totally geared to output, to have that luxury to be able to just not produce anything for several months at a time, and then have really powerful periods of creativity,
There's a quote I would like to share with you, Rachel. I hope I can find it. Let me just reach out into my desk. Let me see. Okay, so it's a quote by that I was watching this YouTube video with Brené Brown and Oprah Winfrey. And, Oprah, she calls herself now. But, and this is what Oprah said at one point to a question that Brené Brown had asked her. She said, "You cannot live a brave life without disappointing people. Those people who get disappointed, it's really okay. Because the people who really care for you, the people who are rooting for you, for your rise, will not be disappointed." And it just came to my mind right now as you were speaking, and I thought, oh yeah, I must share that with Rachel. I loved it.
Yeah, but I have to say again, Soila, my experience is when you do energy work, you don't have to leave anyone. They just sort of fall away.
They just go as you progress. A
bit like a snake shedding its skin, and the right people stay, and then some people depart, and it's kind of going with the flow of that, and just and allowing new people in, and some people stay around and some people don't. And I think the more you focus on your own work, the less you become in a struggle with the externals of having to get rid. I mean, I see a lot of that on Facebook, kind of like, get rid of negative people in your life.
Yeah.
Well, they couldn't be there unless you attracted them
Attracted
in.
them, yeah.
So
Yeah.
the only thing you have to do is to think, why have I attracted that person in? What do I need to shift and heal and transform, transmute? What in my own vibration, because they couldn't be here if it wasn't for me. And when you do that work, you tend to find that people, particularly difficult people, they just evaporate. They just literally fall away, and you don't need to do anything. So just constantly taking responsibility for your own energy and your own point of attraction, I think, is the most powerful work that anyone can do.
Yeah.
Because then life becomes effortless, and then you just become like a river just flowing.
You just go. It's true. I think what I have found is just by doing a lot of work within myself, not as much as you have been doing by any means, because I always get distracted by other stuff, is listening very much to my instinct when I meet people. And the times when I have allowed myself to just stay in a relationship because I feel, like you were saying, that there's something that I'm supposed to be getting from this relationship. And when it actually ends, it's amazing, because it's like, okay, that's done. And now I can go on, because it's almost like you went through it, you've done it, and now you can move on to the next one without having the baggage of thinking, oh, why. It's like, no, it's okay. It really is okay. I sleep better, I wake up better, I'm much more productive than when I was in that situation. Then it's time.
Yeah. And I think that is an important point that I really found, like with Dee, is like, relationships take up a lot of time.
They do.
And if you're a creative person, like us, creators, entrepreneurs, that actually you have to devote a lot of time to a relationship. So it's actually quite noticeable how much time I've got back through not having that relationship in my life. And I really get, because I know that I'm kind of ready to hatch this next wave of creativity, that space has been created in my life, so that I can just knuckle down and having learned everything, I can really get into creation mode.
Can you tell us about Source TV?
Well, Source TV is a marketing portal and a technology platform which I created because I was doing a lot of mentoring and finding that I was getting loads of thought leaders and transformational teachers and alternative therapists and healers who were coming wanting to monetize what they did and wanting to really expand and get their personal brand known. And I was trying to help these people, and realized after a while that actually what they really needed, more than just advice, was practical tools. A practical platform that would energize them, and also the tools so that they could create online programs that are fully automated. So on the Source platform, we not only kind of breathe energy and energize people and their work and help them to kind of get known for what they do, but also it's just a really clever bit of technology that allows you to create online programs which are fully automated. So it creates a PayPal button that literally, when people buy, everything's triggered, and once you've created that, it can sit there just kind of generating more clients and revenue streams. And then, of course, as you build your tribe, then you're building your client base.
And what kind of people do you have on there? What kind of thought leaders?
So we've got people. I mean, we've interviewed a lot of people, and there's lots of different people on there. I mean, famous people like Neil Donald Walsh and Diana Cooper.
Okay.
Davina McHale. Rita Herrey's is on there. Michael Day, the astrologer. There's a whole eclectic mix. Moira Bush, who's a spiritual entrepreneur. So there's programs, everything from superfood programs to prosperity programs. So there's a whole range of different thought leaders and different teachings.
All right. Rachel, if anyone wanted to contact you, how can they go about doing that? with regards to Source TV? Or
the best way is to email me, rachel@source.tv.
Okay.
Or just to go to the website www.source.tv and have a look and get in touch. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I love the way the darkness has fallen now behind. It's just transformed. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
God. Bye then.
Bye-bye.